Dr. Haruki Tanaka was grading papers in his cramped university office when the world changed forever. The notification on his phone seemed ordinary enough. A news alert, but the words made his coffee mug slip from his fingers and shatter on the floor. Unknown objects in Earth orbit. Government confirms extraterrestrial origin. He didn't believe it at first. Nobody did. Decades of false alarms and conspiracy theories had numbed humanity to the possibility. But when every television channel switched to emergency broadcasts showing the crystalline vessels suspended above major cities, disbelief became impossible. They resembled massive geodes split open to reveal interiors that shimmered with an inner light, refracting the sun's rays into prismatic patterns across the skies. The first sign that these weren't conquerors came when military satellites simply stopped responding without being destroyed. Global communication networks remained untouched. The visitors had merely isolated potential weapons while leaving civilian infrastructure perfectly functional. Haruki watched with the rest of humanity as the first transmission arrived. The being on screen possessed translucent skin through which pulses of bioluminescent light flowed like liquid thought. Its features were almost human. 2 eyes, a mouth-like opening, but composed of faceted surfaces that shifted subtly as it spoke. People of Earth, the translator rendered in hundreds of languages simultaneously. We are the Syrians. We come seeking understanding, cooperation, and... Here the translation hesitated, as if searching for the right word. Protection. Protection. From whom? For what? The questions exploded across social media. Why would beings capable of interstellar travel need protection from humans? 3 days of global panic followed. Religious groups proclaimed the end times or divine visitation. Markets crashed, then rallied. Military forces went to maximum alert, then stood down when the visitors made no aggressive moves. Haruki followed the developments like everyone else, until his department chair called with bewildering news. The aliens are asking for you, specifically, by name. The security screening was intense. Government agents combed through every detail of Haruki's unremarkable life. His specialty in cultural anthropology focused on conflict resolution among indigenous groups, hardly the expertise one would expect aliens to seek. When officials investigated why extraterrestrials would know his name, they discovered his academic papers had been mysteriously downloaded thousands of times from deep space IP addresses over the past decade. The journey to the landing site in neutral Switzerland felt surreal. The military escort, the hastily assembled diplomatic team, the barrage of instructions on protocol. None of it seemed connected to the quiet academic life he'd led for 43 years. The Syrian delegate waited in a climate-controlled chamber. Up close, Ambassador Lumina was even more striking than on broadcasts. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, her crystalline form caught light and transformed it into patterns that seemed almost like another form of communication. When she moved, it was with fluid grace despite appearing to be made of living crystal. "Dr. Tanaka," she said, her voice melodic without electronic translation. "Your species faces a moment of great significance." "How do you know me?" Haruki managed to ask, finding his voice. "Why me?" Ambassador Lumina's surface rippled with blue-green light. "Your work on the Congolese reconciliation frameworks demonstrated understanding of something most species take millennia to grasp. That lasting peace requires more than the absence of conflict. It requires the wisdom to know when strength must support compassion." Haruki blinked in confusion. That was just a theoretical paper. It was barely cited in my own field. To us, it revealed something precious. The ambassador's form shifted, revealing a deeper crimson light at her core. "We have monitored your species for generations, searching for evidence that you possess what the galaxy desperately needs." "Which is what, exactly?" asked the Secretary General standing beside Haruki. Ambassador Lumina's voice became grave, the lights within her dimming to deep indigo. "The courage to defend those who cannot defend themselves, without becoming that which you stand against." She turned back to Haruki. "We need to show you why. Will you come with us?" Before he could answer, alarms blared. A military aide rushed in, face pale. Multiple objects have appeared beyond lunar orbit. They're not Syrian. The ambassador's form pulsed with rapid flashes of yellow light. Fear, Haruki somehow knew instinctively. They have found us more quickly than anticipated, she said. The Vargas come. We must leave immediately. Ambassador Lumina's crystalline form pulsed with urgent patterns of light. Dr. Tanaka, your presence is essential. Before Haruki could process what was happening, he found himself ushered aboard a Syrian transport vessel, a teardrop of living crystal that hummed with energy. The craft descended with impossible smoothness, Earth's blue curve appearing below as military jets scrambled in futile pursuit. This is kidnapping, protested the UN representative who had insisted on accompanying them. Return us to Earth immediately. It is protection, Lumina corrected. The Vargas do not negotiate. They harvest. The transport docked within the massive Syrian mothership, a structure that reconfigured itself like flowing water frozen in perfect crystalline moments, corridors forming and dissolving as needed. Inside, Haruki gasped as he encountered other alien species. A delegation of willowy beings with 4 arms and iridescent skin nodded respectfully. Floating orbs of pulsing light communicated through mathematical patterns. Most striking were the Moravians, sentient plant-like creatures whose flowering appendages changed color to express emotion. The Galactic community, Lumina explained, guiding them to a chamber whose walls displayed real-time views of space. Over 7,000 peaceful civilizations linked through shared knowledge and respect. And the Vargas? Haruki asked. Lumina gestured to the display where ominous vessels appeared beyond Luna. Unlike the crystalline elegance of Syrian ships, these were asymmetrical constructions of dark, organic material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Tendrils extruded and retracted across their surfaces like probing fingers. They evolved from apex predators on a world of perpetual twilight. A new voice explained. A small, avian being with feathers that shimmered like oil on water approached. I am Kirvesh, Galactic community historian. The Vargas are unique, a species whose biology requires conquest. Their neural pathways are stimulated by domination and subjugation of others. Without it, they experience physical pain. Like an addiction, Haruki suggested. More fundamental, Kirvesh corrected. Like your need for oxygen. Lumina guided them to another chamber where several Syrians attended to one of their kind lying on a crystalline platform. The prone figure's normally translucent skin had turned cloudy, internal lights flickering weakly. Ambassador Thelos attempted to understand Vargas' psychology. Lumina explained. This is the result. What happened? Haruki asked. We showed him historical footage of Vargas' conquest, Kirvesh said. A mild example, carefully edited for diplomatic training. And this was the result. The UN representative looked horrified. The empathy plague, Lumina confirmed. Our species evolved perfect empathy. We physically experienced the emotions of others. It was our greatest advancement, allowing us to build a civilization without conflict. Now it is our greatest vulnerability. As if to demonstrate, a technician activated a small screen showing footage of a human boxing match. Instantly, Lumina's form clouded, her lights dimming as she staggered. Haruki caught her before she collapsed. Turn it off, Kirvesh demanded, and the screen went black. Lumina's form gradually cleared. Even simulated violence affects us, she explained weakly. Actual aggression. Experiencing the emotions of beings who enjoy causing pain overwhelms our neural systems. When the Vargas discovered this weakness, we became their preferred targets. But why come to Earth? The UN representative demanded. We're barely interstellar. Our technology is irrelevant. Kirvesh interrupted. We need your perspective, not your weapons. On the display, Earth military forces had engaged the advanced Vargas scouts. Nuclear weapons detonated in space, seemingly absorbed by the alien vessels without effect. Your species exists in perfect balance, Lumina said, recovering. You understand peace and conflict as complementary forces, not opposites. You can choose violence yet limit it with compassion. This understanding has been lost to most advanced species. You're saying we're special because we still fight. The UN representative sounded incredulous. No, Lumina's lights pulsed gently. You're special because you understand when not to. A thunderous vibration shook the ship. The displays showed more Vargas vessels materializing. We've run out of time, Kurvesh announced grimly. The Vargas fleet has arrived. The Syrian mothership shuddered as it executed an emergency jump, the stars blurring momentarily before resolving into an unfamiliar pattern. Haruki stumbled against a wall that rippled like liquid crystal under his touch, absorbing the impact. Where are we? He asked, regaining his balance. The Lyrican system, Kurvesh replied, feathers rippling with anxiety. Specifically, approaching the third planet, one recently visited by the Vargas. The view screens activated, revealing a world that might once have been beautiful. Now its continents were marred by vast, pulsating structures resembling enormous black veins that spread across the surface in web-like patterns. What happened? Haruki whispered, though part of him already understood. Emotional harvesting infrastructure, Lumina explained, her crystalline form dimming with sorrow. The Lyrican civilization was peaceful, artistic. 7 billion sentient beings. The UN representative asked. The Vargas do not kill their conquests immediately, Kurvesh said. They farm them. Those structures extract emotional energy, primarily fear, pain, and despair, which the Vargas consume to satisfy their biological needs. A smaller vessel detached from the mothership, taking them closer to the planet's surface. As they descended through cloud layers, Haruki saw movement around the black structures, countless figures laboring under the watch of towering chitinous guards. This is not merely conquest, Lumina said. It is sustenance. The Vargas evolved to require the neurochemical release that comes only from domination. When they exhaust a planet's emotional resources, they move to the next. The transport landed near what appeared to be a containment facility. Inside, surrounded by energy fields and heavily guarded, was a massive Vargas commander. Its exoskeleton gleamed with iridescent blacks and deep purples, with multiple eyes that constantly shifted position across its armored surface. Jointed limbs ended in appendages that seemed equally suited to delicate manipulation or devastating force. This one was captured during a raid on our scientific outpost, Kurvesh explained. We've been attempting communication without success. You're keeping it prisoner? Haruki asked, surprised that the peaceful Syrians would resort to captivity. A necessary compromise of our principles, Lumina admitted, her lights pulsing with discomfort. We must understand them to find a solution. The Vargas commander noticed their arrival and moved closer to the energy barrier, its shifting eyes focusing intently on Haruki. New species, it said, its voice translated through speakers. Undeveloped. Primitive. Yet interesting. Haruki felt a chill at being addressed directly. Why do you do this? He asked, gesturing toward the view screen showing the devastated planet. There must be other ways to satisfy your needs. The Vargas commander's exoskeleton rippled in what might have been amusement. You suggest alternatives to our nature. We have existed for 30,000 of your years, conquering 17 galaxies. When we do not feed, we experience agony beyond your comprehension. But have you tried? Haruki pressed. There are psychological techniques that create similar neurochemical responses without causing suffering. Competitive games, simulated challenges. The commander's shifting eyes suddenly froze, all focusing directly on Haruki. Elaborate. Kurvesh and Lumina exchanged surprised glances. This is the first interest any Vargas has shown in alternatives, Kurvesh whispered. On Earth, Haruki continued, we've developed many activities that trigger reward responses in predatory brains. Sports, strategy games, even certain forms of art and music can stimulate the same pathways as conquest. Deception. The Vargas commander dismissed, though Haruki noticed it hadn't moved away. No, Haruki countered. Adaptation. Even apex predators evolve new strategies when environments change. As they returned to the transport, Lumina's form brightened with cautious hope. No Syrian could have had that conversation. We physically cannot conceptualize predatory thinking well enough to suggest alternatives. Don't celebrate yet, Kurvesh warned, guiding them back to the ship. There's something the Council has withheld from you, Dr. Tanaka. Humanity was not our first choice for allies. What do you mean? The UN representative demanded. You were our seventh, Lumina admitted reluctantly. The previous 6 species we approached, all balanced like yours, were completely annihilated within weeks of our contact. Haruki felt the blood drain from his face. Are you saying Earth is in danger because you came to us? No, Kurvesh said grimly. We're saying Earth was already targeted. The Vargas were coming regardless. We just hoped you might succeed where the others failed. The journey to the Syrian homeworld took 3 days by their measure. Haruki spent the time learning everything he could about the galactic community and the ongoing conflict. Earth governments had been informed of his status. Not a hostage, but a diplomatic representative by emergency appointment. The news from home was chaotic. Panic in some regions, celebrations in others. Military forces on high alert, while civilian populations wavered between fear and fascination. When they emerged from faster-than-light travel, the view stole Haruki's breath. The Syrian homeworld hung in space like a perfect diamond, its crystalline continents refracting starlight into rainbows that danced across its atmosphere. Orbital structures formed an intricate geometric pattern that Lumina explained was both defensive shield and communication network. Welcome to Syriana, she said as their shuttle descended toward the surface. Few non-Syrians have ever visited our origin world. They landed near a cluster of towering crystal spires that dwarfed Earth's tallest skyscrapers, each pulsed with internal light in complex, shifting patterns. The memory archives, Kurvesh explained. The complete recorded history of Syrian civilization, over 9 million years of continuous knowledge. Inside the central spire, they were greeted by 3 Syrians, unlike any Haruki had seen before. Their forms were less defined, more luminous, as though they were transitioning from matter to pure light. The memory keepers, Lumina said, her form dimming respectfully, our oldest living citizens. We see the human carries potential, one of the memory keepers said, voice resonating directly in Haruki's mind rather than through air, yet understand so little. Haruki felt no offense at the assessment. I'm trying to learn quickly. Show him, another memory keeper directed. Lumina guided Haruki to place his hand against a crystalline panel. The contact sent a jolt through his body, not painful but disorienting, as images flooded his mind. Scenes from Syrian history playing at impossible speed. He saw their evolution from simple aquatic creatures to crystal-based life forms. He witnessed their early civilization, surprisingly familiar with conflict, competition, and warfare. Then came the breaking point, a devastating civil war using crystalline weapons that nearly shattered their planet's crust. In the aftermath, the surviving Syrians made a species-wide decision. They would re-engineer their own biology to eliminate the capacity for aggression. The images stopped abruptly as Haruki pulled his hand away, gasping. You chose to become what you are now. We chose survival, the first memory keeper confirmed. We removed the neural pathways that enabled violence, replacing them with perfect empathy. For millions of years, it brought us peace and advancement. Until the Vargas discovered you couldn't defend yourselves, Haruki concluded. Not merely that we wouldn't fight, Lumina clarified. We physically cannot conceptualize strategic aggression. When we attempt to develop defensive strategies, our minds simply stop. To demonstrate, a Syrian scientist attempted to explain basic defensive positioning against a simulated Vargas attack. Midway through the explanation, the scientist's form clouded and collapsed into a catatonic state. "You've engineered yourselves into a corner," the UN representative said bluntly. "Yes," acknowledged the third memory keeper. "We possess technology capable of redirecting incredible energies, what you might consider weapons of unimaginable power. Yet we have forgotten how to use these systems defensively." A commotion outside interrupted them. A military delegation from Earth had arrived, led by Colonel Maya Chen, a compact woman with alert eyes and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to command. "Dr. Tanaka," she greeted him crisply. "Earth governments have established an emergency coalition. I've been sent to assess the situation." Before Haruki could explain, an urgent communication came through. The display showed Earth's orbital defense platforms activating against unidentified objects approaching Mars. "It appears," Colonel Chen said grimly, "that the Vargas have decided to make the first move." The message that followed confirmed her assessment. It was short, direct, and terrifying. Coordinates for a secret human colony on Mars that even Colonel Chen hadn't known existed, along with a simple ultimatum from the Vargas Imperium. "Surrender the Syrians, or watch as we demonstrate our power on your outpost. You have 6 hours to comply." 6 hours isn't enough time to evacuate the Mars colony, Colonel Chen stated, her face grim as they gathered in the Syrian command center, a cathedral-like space where crystalline surfaces displayed real-time information from across the solar system. "Even if we revealed its existence publicly, which our governments refuse to do, surrender is not an option," the UN representative insisted. "Once we show weakness, they'll never stop demanding more." Haruki watched the Syrians' reactions carefully. Their crystalline forms dimmed with what he now recognized as distress whenever conflict was discussed directly. Yet they were trying to help, interfacing with their technology to provide information while carefully avoiding strategic discussions. "There must be a third option," Haruki said, turning to Lumina. "Your technology. Is there anything that could protect the Mars colony without harming the Vargas?" "Perhaps," she replied hesitantly. "We possess systems that can redirect energy. In theory, they could create a defensive barrier, but you can't tell us how to use them offensively," Colonel Chen finished for her. "What if humans operated the systems while you simply maintained them?" The idea sparked something in Haruki's mind. Not just operated them. What if we became your strategic proxies entirely? The memory keeper's forms brightened with interest. "Elaborate," one instructed. "The Syrians cannot conceptualize deception or aggression," Haruki explained, turning to Colonel Chen. "But we can. What if we acted as their strategic minds while they provided the technological means?" "Compassionate deception," Chen nodded, understanding immediately. "We handle the strategy while ensuring minimal harm, a melding of our approaches." Within the hour, a plan took shape. The Syrians provided neural interfaces, delicate crystalline circlets that would allow select humans to control Syrian defensive technology. The process was painful and risky for human minds, but 20 volunteers from Chen's team stepped forward. "The neural architecture is complex," Lumina warned as technicians prepared the first interface. "Your minds were not designed for this connection. Neither were yours designed for strategic thinking," Chen replied with a tight smile. "Seems we both need to adapt." Haruki volunteered to test the first interface. The crystalline circlet felt cool against his temples, then suddenly burning hot as connections formed. His vision blurred, replaced by a dizzying array of information, Syrian sensor data flowing directly into his consciousness. Something went wrong during calibration. A feedback surge connected him momentarily to Lumina's mind instead of the defense systems. In that fraction of a second, Haruki glimpsed fragments of Syrian history that hadn't been shown in the official records. Images of Earth being visited by Syrian observers millions of years ago, genetic material carefully preserved and cultivated over geological timescales. The connection broke as technicians stabilized the system. Haruki fell to his knees, gasping. "What was that?" he demanded, looking up at Lumina. "What did I just see?" The memory keepers exchanged glances of luminous communication before one answered. The truth you were not yet ready to receive. Earth was seeded with Syrian genetic material long ago, creating a species that could one day remember what we had chosen to forget. You made us? Colonel Chen asked incredulously. Not made, Lumina corrected. Guided. Human evolution followed its own path, but with certain capacities preserved that most species eventually lose. Before they could process this revelation, alarms sounded. The Vargas had intercepted fragments of their communications and deployed their advance forces, not toward Mars as expected, but toward Earth's moon. They believe you possess an ancient superweapon, Kirvesh explained, reviewing the intercepted Vargas transmissions. Your attempts to shield communications have convinced them you're hiding something of immense power. Our deception worked too well, Haruki realized. No, Colonel Chen countered, a strategic gleam in her eye. This gives us time. If they're focusing on finding a weapon that doesn't exist, we can prepare the real defense. The first human-directed test of Syrian technology proved successful. A shield of crystalline energy materializing around the Mars colony. But maintaining it required constant neural connection, the strain evident on the faces of the human operators. How long can they hold it? Haruki asked as one volunteer was carried away, unconscious from the mental effort. Not long enough, Colonel Chen answered, checking the countdown timer. We need something more permanent. There may be one option, the eldest memory keeper said reluctantly. But it requires a sacrifice no Syrian can make, a mind capable of both perfect empathy and strategic deception. All eyes turned to Haruki as understanding dawned. The connection he'd experienced hadn't been an accident. It had been a test. The first confrontation with the Vargas occurred not on Mars or Earth, but on Europa, Jupiter's icy moon. Human research outposts there had been hastily converted to defensive positions, a thin line of protection before the inner solar system. Haruki watched the battle unfold from the Syrian command center, where holographic displays showed the approaching Vargas vessels, organic constructs that pulsed and shifted like living tissue. Earth's conventional weapons proved nearly useless. Missiles were absorbed into the hulls, leaving only momentary indentations before the living ships regenerated. Our turn, Colonel Chen said grimly, nodding to the human operators connected to Syrian systems. Haruki had refused the memory keeper's cryptic offer of sacrifice, at least until he understood what it entailed. Instead, he coordinated between the human strategic team and the Syrian technicians, translating concepts that the peace-evolved aliens couldn't process directly. The neural-linked humans directed crystalline energy through Europa's subsurface ocean, using the moon itself as a conduit. When the Vargas ships approached within a certain range, energy surged upward through the ice in precise geometric patterns. The effect was immediate and unexpected. Rather than destroying the organic vessels, the energy crystallized them, suspending the living ships and their crews in translucent stasis, like insects trapped in amber. The Vargas weren't killed but frozen in time, their biological processes slowed to near immobility. It worked, Chen exhaled, disbelief evident in her voice. Non-lethal neutralization. The Syrians observed with fascination. Containment without destruction. Lumina marveled. A concept we understood theoretically, but could never implement tactically. The crystallization won't hold them forever, a technician warned. The organic ships are already adapting, trying to break down the molecular structure. How long do we have? Haruki asked. 3 days, perhaps 4, came the reply. The unexpected victory sent ripples through both human and Vargas command structures. Earth governments celebrated prematurely, already arguing over access to Syrian technology. Meanwhile, something unprecedented occurred. The Vargas High Command requested direct communication. Their war leader appeared on the central display, a massive multi-bodied entity called the Nexus. Unlike the captured commander, the Nexus had evolved beyond a single form. Multiple chitinous bodies connected by glowing tendrils functioned as one consciousness, with eyes that shifted continuously across all surfaces. Interesting solution. The Nexus's translated voice filled the command center. We have conquered 17 galaxies and encountered 46,000 species. None have attempted crystalline stasis fields. We don't want to destroy you, Haruki stated, speaking before military officials could respond. We're defending ourselves, not seeking conflict. Yet you fight without hatred, the Nexus observed. Your neural patterns during combat show problem-solving engagement, not bloodlust. Curious. Colonel Chen stepped forward. What do you want? A contest, the Nexus replied. Your champions against ours. The solar system is prize. The response sent Earth representatives into heated debate. Some saw opportunity in a limited engagement, others suspected a trap. Haruki observed the Nexus carefully, noticing subtle patterns in its shifting eyes. They consider this negotiation a form of combat, he whispered to Chen. They respect skill, but view conventional diplomacy as weakness. So we accept their challenge but change the rules, she nodded, understanding. Meanwhile, scientists studying the crystallized Vargas ships made a remarkable discovery. The alien biology functioned on emotional energy that could be redirected rather than destroyed, confirming Haruki's theory that the Vargas might be satisfied through means other than conquest. When Chen and Haruki proposed using this knowledge to the Syrian Council, they encountered unexpected resistance. Some council members had accessed restricted Earth communications through their technology exchange. Your governments plan to replicate our technology as weapons, a council elder stated, crystal form pulsing with concern. They discuss using our defensive systems to crystallize entire Vargas worlds. That wasn't our intention, Haruki protested. Perhaps not yours, Lumina acknowledged. But your military leaders see opportunity for dominance, not just protection. The realization hit Haruki with sickening clarity. Humans might be balanced between peace and conflict, but that balance could easily tip. If Earth gained Syrian technology without their ethical framework, humanity might become the next Vargas. Neither fully human nor fully Syrian, but something new. What sacrifice? Haruki demanded, his voice echoing through the crystalline chamber. The memory keepers exchanged luminous glances before the eldest responded. To understand that, you must first comprehend what came before, the ancient Syrian said, guiding Haruki toward the deepest section of the memory archives. They descended into chambers untouched for millions of years. The crystals here were different, darker, with complex fractal patterns that seemed to absorb light rather than emit it. Colonel Chen accompanied them, her military training evident in her watchful gaze. These are the predecessor archives, Lumina explained, records left by those who seeded the galaxy with life long before our civilizations arose. The central crystal activated at their approach, projecting images of breathtaking complexity, star maps, genetic codes, and evolutionary pathways for thousands of species. The predecessors discovered a pattern in intelligent life, the memory keeper explained. Most species evolve toward emotional extremes, either perfect empathy or perfect aggression, both paths ultimately leading to extinction. The empaths become unable to defend themselves, Haruki reasoned, while the aggressors eventually turn on each other. Precisely. Only species maintaining access to the full emotional spectrum achieve sustainable civilization. The archives revealed more. The predecessors' grand experiment in seeding worlds with complementary species, creating a balanced galactic ecosystem. But something had gone wrong. The natural tendency toward specialization meant most species still evolved toward extremes. The Syrians chose perfect empathy, Chen noted, while the Vargas became perfect predators. And humanity? Haruki asked. The memory keeper's form brightened. Your planet's unusual history, multiple extinction events, rapid climate shifts, created evolutionary pressure to maintain adaptability. You never specialized toward either extreme. While they studied the archives, preparations for the contest with the Vargas continued. The terms had been negotiated, a series of challenges testing both strategic thinking and emotional intelligence. The Vargas champions arrived in a ship that resembled a massive chitinous arthropod. They were stunning specimens of their kind, battle-scarred warriors towering over even the tallest humans. They approached the contest grounds expecting traditional combat, but found instead a series of unexpected challenges. The first tests favored the Vargas, feats of strength and tactical problem-solving. The human team, led by Chen, held their own but fell behind. The Syrians watched anxiously, their crystalline forms dimming with concern. Everything changed with the final challenge, one proposed by Haruki himself. Both species would experience the other's emotional reality through a modified Syrian neural link. This is unprecedented, Lumina warned. No species has attempted to bridge such different emotional architectures. That's exactly why it's necessary, Haruki insisted. The link activated. The Vargas champions experienced human empathy, while Chen and Haruki's team felt the dragging predatory need that defined Vargas' existence. Both sides collapsed in shock. When they recovered, something fundamental had changed. The Vargas warriors trembled, having physically experienced for the first time the suffering they'd caused across galaxies. The humans struggled to process the overwhelming biological imperative for conquest that drove Vargas' behavior. Now we understand, Chen said quietly. Their aggression isn't choice, it's survival. And our empathy isn't weakness. The lead Vargas responded, using human language for the first time. It's different strength. This unprecedented moment of mutual comprehension created the first true possibility for peace, until alarms shattered the moment. A radical human faction had infiltrated Syrian systems, attempting to weaponize the neural link technology to enslave the Vargas consciousness. Betrayal. The Vargas warriors roared, their momentary empathy forgotten as survival instincts took control. Not betrayal. Haruki insisted desperately. Not all of us. Not what we stand for. But it was too late. The Vargas fleet received orders to resume hostilities. On view screens throughout the chamber, massive organic ships began moving toward Earth with clear intent. The memory keeper turned to Haruki, crystal form pulsing with urgency. Now do you understand the sacrifice required? Not your life, but your humanity. What do you mean? Haruki asked, though part of him already knew. To save both our species, one mind must hold the perfect balance, Syrian empathy and human strategic thinking. Neither fully human nor fully Syrian, but something new. How long until the Vargas fleet reaches Earth? Colonel Chen demanded, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. 17 hours, a technician responded. Their organic ships are accelerating beyond previous observed capabilities. The betrayal by the human radical faction had shattered the fragile trust between species. The Vargas Nexus had cut all communication, their fleet formations shifting into attack configurations perfected across thousands of conquered worlds. Haruki stood in the center of the Syrian command chamber, the memory keeper's words echoing in his mind. A sacrifice of humanity. Not death, but transformation. What exactly are you proposing? He finally asked. A neural bridge, Lumina explained, her crystalline form pulsing with complex emotions. Not temporary like the interface you experienced, but a permanent melding. Your consciousness would be partially transferred into a Syrian crystalline matrix while maintaining your human thought patterns. You would become the first of a new kind, the memory keeper added. Neither human nor Syrian, but a bridge between ways of thinking. And this would help how, exactly? Chen interjected, her pragmatic mind focusing on immediate survival. Ambassador Luminous form shifted, revealing schematics for a device hidden within Earth's moon. The predecessors left artifacts throughout the galaxy, dormant technology awaiting species that achieved balance. One such artifact exists in your lunar mantle, placed there millions of years ago. "We've mapped the entire moon," Chen objected. "There's nothing." "Nothing your instruments could detect," the memory keeper corrected. "It exists partially, in higher dimensional space. Only a consciousness that embodies balance can activate it." The plan crystallized quickly. While Earth forces prepared last-ditch defenses, Haruki would undergo the neural bridge procedure. If successful, he would attempt to activate the predecessor artifact, a device the Syrians believed could establish true communication between all sentient species without loss or misunderstanding. "It's a desperate gamble," Chen acknowledged. "Do we have any alternative?" Haruki asked quietly. She considered for a moment, then shook her head. "Conventional weapons are useless against their ships. Without some miracle, Earth falls within a day." The procedure was prepared in the heart of the crystal spires. Ambassador Lumina volunteered to form the other half of the neural bridge. Her consciousness would meld with Haruki's, creating something entirely new. "This is irreversible," she warned as technicians positioned crystalline nodes around his temples. "Parts of you will become Syrian. Parts of me will become human." "Will I still be me?" Haruki asked. "Yes and no," she answered honestly. "You will be more than you are now, but never again only human." As the final preparations were made, Colonel Chen approached. Her military formality softened. "The UN Security Council has officially authorized this action," she said, then added more personally. "For what it's worth, I think you're the right person for this. You understood both sides from the beginning." The process began. Pain unlike anything Haruki had experienced coursed through his mind as human neurons formed connections with Syrian crystalline matrices. Images, sensations, and emotions not his own flooded his consciousness. Millions of years of Syrian experience compressed into moments. Simultaneously, Lumina absorbed human perspective, the complexity of balanced emotions, the capacity for strategic thinking without losing compassion. Their separate consciousnesses blurred, then reformed into something greater. When Haruki opened his eyes, his perception had fundamentally changed. His skin now contained traces of crystalline structure, faint luminescence pulsing beneath the surface. Parts of his thoughts processed in ways never before possible for a human mind. It worked, the memory keeper observed with reverence. The first balance keeper. Without waiting, they departed for Earth's moon. The Vargas fleet had detected their movement and diverted forces to intercept, but Haruki, or what he had become, perceived weaknesses in their formations invisible to others. Within the lunar regolith, guided by senses beyond human understanding, he located the predecessor artifact, a geometric structure of impossible angles that human eyes could barely comprehend. At his touch, it awakened after millions of years, unfurling into higher dimensions. Energy surged through the solar system, not as a weapon but as communication in its purest form. The signal connected every sentient mind, human, Syrian, and Vargas alike, in a moment of perfect understanding without words. The truth revealed itself to all simultaneously. The predecessors had designed all sentient life as parts of a greater whole, each species embodying different aspects of consciousness. The Syrians represented harmony and unity, the Vargas embodied drive and ambition, and humans maintained the crucial balance between. None were meant to exist in isolation. Together, they formed something greater than any could achieve alone. The Vargas fleet halted its advance. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they experienced fulfillment without domination. The Syrians comprehended strategic necessity without losing their empathic nature, and humanity glimpsed its true purpose in the cosmos, not as conquerors or victims, but as balance keepers who understood both extremes without surrendering to either. "This is just the beginning," Haruki Lumina said, their voice carrying harmonic overtones impossible for either species alone. "The real work of balance has only just begun."